There we go. All right, well, I can at least get us started of just giving a little context to what we're going to be doing today. This is the Black Lives Matter Artistic Expression Salon, and this has been put together with a group from the Department of Learning and Teaching that I've been privileged, and Dr. Lathan have been privileged to be a part of this summer. This is the third in our series, our summer series, and so we're going to start out with a welcome, go through some introductions about what we're trying to do here. We have the Playwrights Project performance and a Q&A after that, and then the visual and performing arts presentation. We're going to do a little interactive website tour and allow people to kind of be able to explore the website on their own as well. Dr. Lathan is going to share a video that he has put together. And then Dr. Christopher Hall from the Counseling and Marriage and Family Therapy Department is going to give us our closing. And then I'll once again put a plug in for the Black Lives Matter Fall and Spring Event Survey, which is where we're really trying to get create a series, a program for the fall and the spring based on where people are and what they want so that we can really meet the needs of the community with which we're serving. So thank you all for being here. Whoops. I wanted to start out today with reminding us about where this all started, and that is our solidarity statement and call to action. And the second part of our statement was a call to action, which means that we do something with it. And that's really where we actually brainstormed quite a few different actions that we could have taken for today, but we chose three that we really wanted to focus on in the summer. The first one being the educating around the Juneteenth, and then having the discussion around the 4 areas of policing, protesting, schooling, and healing, which we did that on June 18th. The second piece or action that we did was the book club on Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility book, and that was on July 8th and was well attended, and we had some amazing conversations about what it really means to do this work, not only in schools, but within the community and even within our own circles of friends and family. And that was a really wonderful opportunity. And today we are really looking at this section here. And I'm just gonna read this part just to kind of remind us of the solidarity statement and where we wanna go. So it says, we are called to act and defend the rights and liberties of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, including those marginalized due to their sexual orientation and gender identities. The unheard voices of BIPOC are those within the American tapestry who exist in a collective oppression and are often excluded from full participation as citizens in our democracy. They have been profiled, detained, and denied their rights, their humanity asphyxiated. Today is about bringing voice and celebrating the expression of the people within our community. And so when we began developing this, we put the call out for artists to provide whatever their artistic expression was for today's event. And we want to thank you all for being here and being a part of this. Dr. Joy Spencer, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, sorry, let me get my video up. I apologize. Wow, it's just a pleasure of mine to be here. It's been a very busy day, but it's never too busy to stop and do this work. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who's put in so much work to organizing this event, and welcome. Here we are. It's 3 p.m. on the West Coast, and you're doing the right thing. You're in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. And I want you to really sit with that and know that there is never a wrong time for us to be thinking about justice and thinking about undoing the damage that racism has caused us in our society and in our world, because we are being watched and we have a duty. When I look back on my life, I want to be able to say, was I in the right place? What was I doing? Was I doing the right thing? So all that to say, welcome to the artists. Art is central to the African American experience. In many ways, suffering has produced an art form that is really beyond, it's unimaginable. You can go to Japan and hear Japanese gospel singers emulating the gospel music of African Americans. Why? Because there is something about the music of African Americans which is forged in a space of suffering that is transformative and transfixing. You can hear young people in the Middle East engaged in hip hop and all sorts of hip hop experiences, and you're wondering how is this kid who grew up in the Middle East, thousands of miles away, engaging with hip hop that I grew up with in South Central LA? Why is it? What is transfixing about the art of the African American community? Again, it was forged in suffering, and it was forged in a space of making a way out of no way. Even if you listen to African American language, I made $1 from a dime. I made a way out of no way. If you just listen to the language, the metaphors, the art is there, and the suffering has shaped it, and it has shaped the suffering. And when you listen to African American comedy, I believe it is some of the most incredible comedy, because sitting right next to it is the pain. And there's something about art that is elevated when it is touched with pain and it's touched with suffering. That doesn't mean you can't do art if you don't suffer, but it does mean that you do art well when you do suffer, and when you are able to be touched with pain. And I believe that when we hurt, that our art is able to touch people who are hurting, and it helps us to get through whatever it is that we need to get through. All that to say that it is it's a distinct pleasure of mine that we are coming together with art at this moment, because art is healing, art is transformative. Someone might not come to a lecture to learn about Black Lives Matter, but they might come and look at a mural. They might listen to a piece of music. They might sit and cry over something, a piece of music that just touches them in such a deep, deep way. Welcome to this. I hope that this is one of many, many expressions. I'm sorry that the Academy does not do a good enough job with elevating art. It needs to do better in that regard. We are a institute of the intellect, and we live in the space of ideas. But there is something more than ideas that moves us. There's something more than just words. There's something to art that is transformative. I'm an educator. I was a middle school teacher, and I can tell you, I could talk about math for days. But when I place the art next to it, it changes how my students engage with what I am teaching. And so I'm just here to be able to enjoy and to experience. My two nieces even shared, they have some pieces that they've contributed here. They're 7 and 11. When things happen with George Floyd, this 7 and 11-year-old, what did they do? They wanted to draw. They wanted to say, I matter. These are babies in my experience. For me, I mean, I'm a doting aunt, but these are children. What's the first thing they went to? Art. Their art. So I just invite you to be touched today, invite you to open yourself up to alternative ways of experiencing one another and experiencing one another's voice and one another's expression. And I'm for art. I'm for us as an artist community. I don't know if I am an artist, but I love it. I appreciate it deeply. So Rebecca, I'll send it back over to you. Thank you for all the organizers, and let's have a good time.
Right. Thank you so much. And now I'm very, very excited to introduce Zulema, Adon, and Aaron, who have been working tirelessly over the last few weeks as they pulled together the art, curated the art, and then were instrumental in creating what we have put together on our website, which will be highlighting all of this. So I will hand it over to you all now. And I'll stop sharing so that you can.
Thank you, Dr. Jez. Thank you, Dr. Spencer, for those incredibly powerful words. As I just get myself in order here. Okay. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this first of hopefully more artistic expression salons. I want to start by defining the term salon actually dates back to 17th century France. And it was a state-sponsored, highly conservative system. It wasn't just a space to exhibit. It was actually a system that was controlled and juried by the Academy, the Fine Arts Academy, and other institutions that actually reified much of the Occidental hegemony that we're calling out today. It was a Eurocentric, classicist political institution that rejected progress and artistic evolution, and anyone that didn't adhere or conform to the accepted standards or cultural tastes as determined by the dominant elite they were excluded. And so eventually those that were excluded went on to establish their own exhibition spaces and actually now comprise some of the most remarkable painters and artists in history, to the tune of Van Gogh and Cezanne and the Impressionists and those that came before and after them. So as part of our pledge within our statement of solidarity to dismantle systems of oppression and elevate the voices and expression of those who might otherwise go unheard, we appropriated the term of salon to deliberately center a diverse group of artists, writers, performers, so that we might lift and legitimize their personal artistic responses to the Black Lives Matter movement. So it is a play, intentionally so. The arts offer a modality for expression that truly has something for everyone when we free it from its institutional allegiance associated with art with a capital A. Art can function as the ultimate inclusive endeavor that can simultaneously transcend and respond to age, race, ability, economics, politics, gender, education, and hierarchy. And the beautiful thing here is that as artists, our production and expression does not end with one or a few visual performances or written pieces or visual expressions. It is as boundless as we choose it to be. And so with that in mind, we hope that we can continue creating and responding to these topics and extend the creative circle to include more artists in the future. And in the words of Jean-Michel Basquiat, I don't listen to what art critics say. I don't know anybody who needs a critic to find out what art is. So at this time, I just want to extend my deepest gratitude to all of the artists, writers, performers that submitted work to make this exhibition a huge success. I really enjoyed our exchanges. You know, putting yourself and your art out there isn't always easy, even for the most seasoned artists, especially with a theme such as this one, where deep emotion and vulnerability convey. So for that, we are deeply grateful. I also want to thank Dr. Jez and Dr. Lathan for their ongoing support and the curatorial team that will be speaking next as well. And a very special thanks to Sergio Rodriguez for his capital job assembling our website. And now Adam will take us deeper into our purpose.
Thank you, Zulema, for your introduction to the curatorial concept and design. I want to answer the question why we are here, particularly why an art salon is being utilized in our university's Black Lives Matter movement and discussion. Is art inherently political? Is visual and audio medium a valid form of expression? I would argue that art in its many forms contains an argument, whether political or not. These arguments are expressed from the artist and their work to their audience. The process in which art is created is transformative, and the end result is a relationship between the artist and their work and the art and the audience. The work presented today will convey a lot of arguments, a lot of ideas, and many forms of expression. That being said, I welcome the audience to interpret the work they see as well, as art is subjective to the viewer. We are all art critics, whether we are trained or not. and we take in form that art is as much as we are willing to take from ourselves. If you do not get from the art what the artist states, that is okay. As art historian W.J.T. Mitchell once argued, that the destabilizing identity is to an extent a phenomenological issue. A transaction between pictures and observers is activated by the internal structures and effects of multi-stability. I would argue that multi-stability is an intersectional issue that creates our positionalities. Just as we students take into account our positionality when using critical theory in education through its many lenses such as Marxism, race, colonialism, etc., we too should use our positionality to understand art in our own terms. So what I'm inviting the audience to do today is to listen to the artist's arguments, because art in its many forms, from ocean blue impressionistic brushes of Van Gogh's Starry Night to the institutionally destructive, inquisitive art of the Guerrilla Girls, is an argument. That being said, I also ask the audience to engage with the art and interpret their work they see with their own understanding of the world. And now I hand it off to Aaron.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. I just want to take this time to let this moment absorb with myself, and I hope everybody's doing the same. And piggyback most definitely on what we heard from Dr. Spencer about the positivity that can come from art through the suffering, the release of anxiety specifically. So if anything, if we don't get anything out of this experience, at least we can have this be a release from day-to-day monotony or things that we might be experiencing personally. So the other thing I wanted to say is we have the chat available to capture this moment in time also. So feel free to share whatever's resonating at the time, whether it's with the particular artist that we're showcasing or the website that we're going to preview a little bit later on. But other than that, thanks everybody for their participation in all its different capacities. There's an airplane passing over. I'll let Zulema take it away.
Thank you, Aaron, Adon, and Zulema. So just so you know, at the end of this, I will be posting the recording, the slide deck, and also the chat box. And so we really are encouraging you to use this chat box to speak to each other, share ideas, share feelings. And then we'll also be capturing it, and it will all be on the website at the very end. And I'll send an email out to everyone as well. So, Zulema, you were going to go over the Playwright Project, introduce the Playwright Project.
Yes, thank you so much. So right now we're going to start our event off with some pre-recorded theatrical performances from Playwrights Project. And it's a nonprofit theater arts education organization. And in the spirit of the times that we're living in, these performances were actually filmed during the pandemic via Zoom. So please enjoy the virtual show. And I'm going to stop my video for optimal streaming.
Aaron's History by Shaka Morgan. Characters. History. A book about the history of African Americans. Aaron. An African American girl infatuated with social media and boys. Setting. 7 a.m. in a grand living room with floor-to-ceiling walls and all-white marble floors, portraits on every wall, and a beautiful bookshelf in the corner. At Rise. History is on the bookshelf as Aaron paces back and forth, taking selfies and dancing to music.
Pop a rubber band, start counting. Buy everything on the counter. Shopping bag on me off balance. Diamond look like a pop. And this 2 Chainz is my...
2 Chainz? I can teach you about 2 Chainz. The 2 Chainz they used to wrap around your great-grandparents. one chain around their neck and hands, and the other one about their feet.
Ooh, wait until Jimmy and them see these new flicks to me. All my followers gonna go crazy. Hold on. Okay, this side. No, this side. Cheese.
I can't believe this look. Calm down, history. Today just might be the day that this little fast-tailed girl will pick me up and learn something. Like the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama from 1955 to 1956. Your people fought hard.
I'm dead. Chris over here saying, hi, shawty. I with them ashy ass lips. Wait, Jimmy again? He responded.
Dolores X. Stokes, at age 10, established the Nation of Islam's first farms. She sent portions of crops to feed other members throughout the cities of the nation occupied. She didn't have time to be chasing boys.
Jimmy said, what's up? He said, what's up? He said, what's up? Hey!
One said, hi, shawty. One said, what's up? Dolores X. Stokes first excelled as a student and then as a strong-willed teacher. Not boys, honey.
You know, let me Google how to bodysuit makeup I got for my birthday. I gotta get ready for this party tonight. Jimmy gonna be there too.
Miss Jefferson was shot and killed in her own home while babysitting her nephew. And someone should come shoot me because I don't know how much more of this nonsense I can take.
Wait, before I look that up, let me call Nene and see if she's seen Jimmy comment on my picture. She gonna trip out. I've been into him since like grade school.
Anybody can sit, said Malcolm. An old woman can sit. A coward can sit. It takes a man to stand. Whoever this Jimmy is, I hope he won't stand for this foolishness.
Yeah, girl, he said, what's up? And I didn't say anything. If he keep commenting on my picture like this, he gonna get what he looking for.
And what's that, Aaron? You still a virgin, girl. You better slow down. Little girl, you gonna regret what you're implying to do. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. What about me?
Jimmy, you really want to meet up? I thought she was with Tracy. Boy, you about to start a fight.
A fight? April 27, 1962 in South Central Los Angeles, east of Culver City and Watts. Your forefathers were in an all-time war, fighting for their rights, leaving William X. Rogers paralyzed. Read me, girl, and learn something.
You know what? Maybe, boy, forget Tracy. She ain't ready.
Slow down, child.
Let me tell Nene, just in case this chicks are like tripping or whatever. Jimmy is mine.
May 14th, 1962, Malcolm X said, I can only say that I am thankful that there is a God in heaven to give real justice to our people when necessary. This is one of the times that we need justice on earth. Lord help.
Scene 2. The characters are History, Aaron, and Justin, Aaron's little brother, who has a lot of energy. The setting is the grand living room at 10 p.m. that evening. At Rise, Aaron is texting her friend. Aaron's little brother, Justin, is playing around in the living room, and History is still trying to be noticed.
Look, Aaron! Watch me make Spider-Man flip over his truck! Hey, you don't want to miss this! Oh, did you see that, Aaron?
1 second, Justin. Let me finish this first. Yeah, she tried to pull my hair. Oh, yeah, and she started running. Sorry, loser.
Victoria Gray of Hattiesburg held up banners to fight for the right to vote. My goodness. And here you are fighting over this Jimmy. How I wish you could hear me. What happened to reading a book? If you're going to fight, make sure it's for a higher cause.
Hey, why do you call her Nene? Does she have a real name? She's pretty, but it's pretty funny to call her Nene.
Her name is Janae. But wait. Yeah, girl, she started tripping. But guess what she can't? Started running. Yeah, running. But guess what she can't run from, though? These hands. I ain't been to Jimmy over, and he's coming, but mom is gone. Business trip.
Wait 1 minute, Missy. Now, you know your mother would not approve of this. If I could only speak words, I would tell you a thing or two right now.
Hey, is Jimmy coming over? Cool, remember when he threw me the football at the park? He's awesome. But Mom will kill you if she finds out.
Yes, she would, but you're not saying anything, right?
Okay, I promise not to tell, but watch me make Spider-Man flip over this monster truck on this bookshelf. Hey, Spider-Man can do anything and everything.
You better keep your mouth closed. Promise. Hold on. Ooh, Jimmy is 10 minutes away. I have to go get freshened up. Justin, come up and clean up his living room and turn on a fan or something.
Boy is always doing some type of tricks around me. It would be nice if he could do a trick that would land me in Erin's hands, and then I could teach her something.
All right, Justin, hurry up with this trick. And be careful by that bookshelf. You know those books are old, and Mom would be pissed if we damage them. Especially that one with the green cover.
Oh, now you notice me when your hind is on the line.
Okay, do it already, Justin. Jimmy gonna be here any minute now. You still have to clean up your toys.
Yeah. Hey, you see? Ow!
The bookshelf. Justin, I told you to be careful. Where does it hurt?
Oh, wait. If I fall, she might just pick me up. It's been 18 years since I have been read by anyone. You know what? Here goes nothing.
Oh, no, Justin, the book. It's Mom's favorite one. Let's hope it's not damaged.
Oh, my toe or the book? Choose one. Can't believe this girl, my sister. Gotta love her.
Hey, what's so special about this old green book?
Is she really touching me? Oh my God, she is. Finally, after all these years, the moment I've been waiting for.
The hidden history? What's that supposed to mean?
Scene 3. Erin is now a professor at LSU. History book is happy to be around. The setting is a classroom full of students ages 14 to 15. At Rise, Erin is holding history, giving a lesson to her class, while history makes side comments to himself.
My favorite part of the day.
Okay, students, open your new history book to page 50. It took me hours to put out all these copies, okay? So please be careful.
Page 50, pioneer businesswoman Victoria Gray went from school teacher to beauty queen's first franchise entrepreneur in the South. It was tough, but she got going. Young ladies, I hope you all pay attention. This is inspirational. Young men, you can learn something from this too.
Okay, so who would like to begin reading? Okay, let's try this. I will read the first few paragraphs, and if anyone feels that they want to take over, just let me know. But don't forget to raise your hand.
Thank you, Lord. Here we go. I'm so glad Erin got smart about life and left all that foolishness alone. Look how far she made it. Teacher. Wow.
That Monday, King replied to a telegram. The president was too busy to see him. So why do you think that happened, Sarah?
Now, Sarah should get this one right. Straight A student. Look at how she's articulating each word, and she knows her stuff. History, you did that.
That's right. Thank you, Sarah. I mean, it took me a long time to understand most of history, and I'm still learning to this day. With history, though, you always have something to learn.
Oh, y'all so sweet. I appreciate the love. You're welcome. You're welcome. And yeah, Sarah, it took Erin a long minute to catch up with the time.
Rick and Jason, please pay attention. You don't want to miss out on this valuable information. Trust me, it's very important to know your history.
Yeah, you two better listen, because the only way you get to know me or what I'm about is by listening or reading me. Oh, how I wish they could hear me.
Yes, Rick. Malcolm X did escape into an airport hotel to spend 7 secluded hours with the magazine writer, Alex Haley. The conditions of those days made it hard to get your voice heard if you were Black.
I'm proud of this boy. He finally stated something that was important. I guess he is paying attention. My bad.
Dr. King said Proposition 14 is sinful. Kids, the 1963 Rumford Act limited the rights of any person. It gave a person the right to decline to sell, lease, or rent real estate property at his absolute discretion.
Mm-hmm. The trouble I've seen is too much. These kids are blessed to not have to live in the mess I've seen.
Okay, before lunch, let me just share something with you all. I was going down the wrong path until I found out the history of who I am and where I came from. So be sure to take these lessons seriously. It will seriously open your mind to more you could ever imagine.
Child, you ain't never lied. It's better to know your history so you will not repeat it. It will always be here, no matter what, to help somebody in need of a lesson.
End of play. Bouncing Ball, a monologue by Earl Young, performed by Joshua Malik Kimble.
I am a bouncing ball, bouncing to the rhythm of time. Once a fractured soul that hadn't known sublime. As time passes, the rigors of life are becoming soft. There inside my lungs that was once rigid and stale and couldn't make it aloft. In me, the hope has survived, a steel that would not bend. Yes, there are some bad things that have been blown away with the wind. In this life, I have also captured growth where it seems I would never get it, because once the gavel slams, you believe your life is forfeit. Because I have knocked my head on so many walls so many times. Yes, I have suffered from these crimes, from stupidity to insight. Inside incarceration, I found my bright. Never thought prison would open up my way of thinking, because at the beginning of my time, I always felt like I was sinking. Programs like crush the negativity that I once cherished. Without this kind of support,
I would likely perish.
Never again being able to bounce. I am a work in progress.
I can't forget to announce.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to welcome Cecelia Kouma, Executive Director and Teaching Artist of Playwrights Project. She's the founder of the Out of the Yard program. And I believe we have James Phillip, alumni from Out of the Yard. And I think Joshua Malik Kimble is also here, also alumni from Out of the Yard. If you are here, hello. Welcome. Those were amazing performances. I thank you so much for making that happen. It is not an easy feat to film virtually and put all of that together, and that was amazing. Very powerful performances. So I guess I'll start us off with a question. So these plays were written in the Out of the Yard program. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So Playwrights Project has been teaching in schools since 1985. We believe in the power of theater, especially from the perspective of a playwright, to be able to take a world, to craft what you believe and put it out on stage to share with people. It opens up the opportunity for discourse, and it allows us to feel alongside with the storyteller, the playwright in this instance. And so being able to take that power into correctional facilities where there are voices who often feel unheard, underappreciated, it is just a joy to be able to give the opportunity for those voices to be heard. And I'm elated that Josh and James are here with us today.
Yes, that is really special to have them. This one maybe for either James or Josh. What do you feel you got most out of the program? What's something that you felt what's valuable to you from the program? Or Josh or James, if you're here.
Well, what I took from the program initially was everyone that attended, they actually got a chance to be themselves. They got a chance to take off their mask that they wear while they're on the yard. Because you know, when you're behind those walls, you have to become a different person in order to survive. But when you're introduced to art in that setting, you, for a brief moment, you forget that you're in prison. You expand your imagination. You interact with people that you normally wouldn't, because, you know, prison is the modern form of segregation amongst the races. So you don't associate with people that are not, you know, like you in more ways than one, whether it's race or gang or whatever the affiliation. If they're not allowed to interact with you, you don't. But when you're in an arts program, specifically the Playwrights Project, those masks come off and you get to interact and you make friends that you normally wouldn't. And so that the first thing that I would have to say I took away from that was I felt safe there, and I made friends that I wouldn't have spoken to otherwise.
Very powerful. And of course, James, you, I believe there's something on the Playwrights Project page that actually a performance of some of your work, and James is a very powerful poet, and his works, he writes, well, you can tell us a little bit more about what your writing is about. I've had the privilege of hearing a few of your pieces when I attended some of the Playwrights Project. So if you could talk a little bit more about the specific, because your work wasn't featured tonight, but I really would love for you to just say a few things about the kind of writing that you do, because you have a real beautiful way of crafting your ideas together.
Well, thank you. Well, first I'd say that I never intended for anything I've written to be heard by anyone. It was more spur of the moment, and Cecelia said, "Do you have anything?" Because I was in the middle of moving, you know, so I got a new place, and so I wasn't able to, you know, participate in, you know, the history play or write something myself. So I said, I have a couple poems, you know, I can dig them out, and surprisingly, well, not even surprisingly, but as to be expected, they were relevant today, and it was about police brutality. And, you know, there's notebooks full, but the ones I chose were relevant to now, especially considering what just happened to George Floyd. And that was the first one that I shared, and the next one was more of a worldview. But I would, you know, being behind those walls, you have to find some outlet, and so I would just write, and they would, you know, first start off as maybe an introspective, and they would eventually turn into an expression of pain. And you know what Dr. Joy said was like right on point. Is art, most art, especially Black art, it comes from pain. It comes from your surroundings. It comes from what you see. most rap artists, they write about the poverty in their situation and how they came up out of it or how they survived. And that's where my words come from. I mean, if you look back, the blues came from sad people. I mean, it's not called the blues for nothing.
Right. Thank you. That's very powerful. Really appreciate that. I wonder if Josh is around. If Josh, you want to speak to Josh was the person, the actor who was performing the monologue Bouncing Ball, and this is the second time I've had an opportunity to hear. He just nails it every time. I mean, you can tell he's really feeling the words. Josh, are you around? If there's you would like to share some insights about something that you found really special about participating, and I believe Josh is still participating as a writer in Cecelia. What is the subsidiary of the Out of the Yard program?
So we have a program that is similar to Working Inside, where we have theater activities and writing, but because we're now online, we're doing it through Zoom. So we have our Friday night returning writers group, and Josh is here. So Josh, go ahead and take it over. I think you're muted.
Yes, I think so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
A little bit.
Okay. For me, particularly, I had been writing for a while, for years, and I was anxious to find some type of program that would allow me to express myself. And man, Playwrights Project kind of just came out of thin air, and ever since I've been in love with the program. I particularly wasn't a playwright. I actually am going to school to be a novelist. So when the Playwrights Project was introduced in the facility that I was at, it was a blessing, because it gave me another way to express writing in a different form. So it challenged me. And the thing that particularly stood out to me when I joined the Playwrights program is the different people that would gravitate towards it, you know. And much to what James was speaking on, is when you're in that situation, everybody is secluded and segregated to their group. And for me personally, growing up in San Diego, that was a culture shock to me when I got to prison. So to see people coming from all across the yard to express themselves. Not everybody went in there initially for that reason, but the way that our instructors constructed that group, you had no choice but to be affected by it if you stayed. And it was like clockwork. By the end of the program, we had dudes that were shy or just reserved or didn't want to be involved per se in that form. Open up. And it was a joy to see people that I had talked to on the yard see me as I was and what I like to do, you know. And that right there, it was a blessing. It really was.
Thank you, Josh. That was, again, just it's so powerful to hear it coming directly from you, because I think getting your voices heard is such a treat for us to be able to listen to, voices different voices from different perspectives, and that helps us be more, helps build compassion across society, which is what we're trying to do here in a social justice program. I want to invite the audience, if anybody has any questions for Cecelia, for James, or for Josh, feel free to type them into the chat box, or you can also address them by unmuting yourself if you'd like to address them directly. We have a few more minutes to engage with our guests. In the meantime, I'll put this out there for anyone. Where do you see, I think it's pretty evident, but if there's anything specific that you'd like to highlight about the work that you're doing and its connection to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I would definitely say that I think that theater is really an important way of looking at the world. We focus on universal wants, that people are drawn to theater because we relate to the characters, because they're big issues that people want. It's love, respect, understanding, whatever those main characters, and we root for them because of that. And so because we start with that accepting of that main character and go on their journey with them, we appreciate all of the details and the differences that they express along the way. And that's what makes the stories interesting, but also what builds our connection to it. And I think that theater is just magical about that in terms of creating discourse. And when you're the playwright, you have to see the point of view of every character in your play. So it really just opens up the possibilities of thinking outside of ourselves. So to me, that's why it's so powerful. Josh or James, or you want to comment on specifically?
I would say that for theater, like I said, it was a different platform for me when it came to writing. But what I did like is how people perceive certain characters. And as I think I shared this in last Friday's class, is when you're writing, say, a short story or a novel, it's not common for you to hear it back read aloud. And in theater, that's kind of how you get your feedback. So to see how people perceive the characters of somebody else's written work is very interesting. And like Cecelia said, I think that we come together a lot more in that fashion because we can relate. And how a person relates to a character, it speaks volumes to how well the writer got their point across. So yeah, I think theater is powerful and very powerful in that way, that it can bring people together through different perspectives.
Thank you. That's wonderful. James, do you want to add anything else to the Black Lives Matter movement? I know you've already shared quite a bit, but
well, I in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, I would have to say that, from the outside looking in, because I've been involved in the protests and, I felt obligated to be involved. But what I do notice is that with any movement, with any civil rights movement, there is no real action taken unless white people are involved. And going back to Gandhi and the example that was taken from Gandhi by Martin Luther King is the nonviolent movement. And what is really the crux of the situation is that white people have to have pity, or I would say better, they would have to empathize with the pain of Black people in order for there to be change. So what does that say about our society as a whole? Is that the people that are suffering cannot just come forward and say, we're suffering, we're in pain, we've been oppressed for 500 years, help us. No, somebody has to actually, that other white people respect and say, look, that's not right. And that in itself is an injustice. I mean, the ends, it's the outcome is what is needed, but the way that you get there is pain in itself. Is that so, everybody can't just look at somebody who's being beaten or strangled or whipped or put to death or unjustly incarcerated or overly incarcerated and just collectively say that's wrong. Somebody that's white has to say that's wrong in order for them to listen to that white person. It's wrong in itself. I mean, how it's being done, of course, we without white people saying, hey, let's change this, it wouldn't get changed. So that in itself is a form of racism. Is that somebody white has to say that's wrong to do that to that Black person. But the Black person can't say it's wrong and you recognize it as wrong. Your opinion or your pain or the blood on the ground from another Black person is not enough for the world to recognize it. So just like with any other civil rights movement, it feels to me like a trend. 10 months from now, 5 months from now, I'm still going to be black. The same things are still going to happen to black people when all this is over. Some other tragedy is going to happen 18 months from now, and then will there be as much uproar? It's almost like the second wave of coronavirus. That's the first wave of coronavirus. People were taking it serious when it first happened. Now there's more infections and people are taking it less serious. So this is like 500 years of pain, 500 years of torture, and 500 years of enslavement, basically, of African American people. So what is really going to change, if anything at all? And I don't believe that without some legislation that things are really going to change. Like if you look deep into how society works, there's organizations that kill people like the Ku Klux Klan. Did you know that the Ku Klux Klan is not classified as a gang? So they're not subject to some of the rules of the Patriot Act or domestic terrorism laws or but even though historically they've killed more people, more black people than the Crips and the Bloods. But not being classified as a gang, it alleviates some of the restrictions that they can that are put on them. So it's just like the world needs to catch up to how everybody's feeling, and it needs to be enacted through legislation. The Senate and the Congress, the House, they need to pass laws that actually really make a change, because we can talk about it all day. We can feel good and kumbaya and rally around the fallen. But what's actually going to change? And there has to be legislation that makes certain acts illegal. And without it, it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. It's just now it's on video. So racism didn't end. It's just now caught on tape. So now instead of it being written in a history book, they're seeing it on tape. I mean, they lynched Jesus. And the only way that it's still brought up today is because it was written in a history book. And that was that was the form of documenting at the time, but now it's on video. So there needs to be legislation. Somebody has to really do something about it instead of talking about it.
And as the voices get out and those images get out into the public, I think that more and more people are just going to have to see the reality of it. So thank you for that, James.
Exactly. Yeah, James. I mean, the chat room is blowing up right now with your words, but you really hit it on the head. It's out there and it's being replayed over and over again. But I think that the contributions that you guys are making, with your words, Josh with his words, the stories that you guys are able to tell are really eye-opening. Your perspective is one that we don't get to hear. And I think it's so critical to hear your words and your stories come out so that, and by the way, you're addressing a whole forum here. This forum is full of social justice advocates. A lot of us are PhD students in a social justice program. So you're really speaking to, that's part of the reason why we wanted to bring you in, is because we want your stories to be heard. And it's the part that I really wanted to emphasize is that where else are you going to get a forum to hear your voices than through programs like the Playwrights Project? And with that, I want to segue to a question that somebody posted in the chat room about how someone can go about supporting the Playwrights Project. And maybe a little bit about, Cecelia, I believe somebody asked about also the history, how you came around to establishing the Out of the Yard program.
Yeah, well, so the organization's been around since 1985. I joined in 2000, and we have been teaching in schools using theater to, elevate voices. We found that the voices that seemed to need the most uplifting were those in low-income, at-risk youth, and particularly when we were in juvenile halls and working with youth. And we realized we need to get this out to adults as well who need an opportunity for this. We started working with adults in the foster care community and then moved into working in the prisons. And we work with other populations as well. And so, but it began as that. I think it was inspiration from the youth in juvenile hall who said, nobody wants to hear my story. Nobody cares. And we said, you have truths that nobody else knows. You need to share those. How will we understand if you don't share them? And so realizing these truths that need to be told from those who are incarcerated as well, and those who are returning back to society. So as far as opportunities for support, we put on performances when we can. We have a website. You can go to our website and check it out. You can sign up to get our mailing list. There is a form on there if people want to volunteer. The world is changing in different ways with this COVID, and we aren't able to get into the facilities right now. We're working with, normally we're creating an environment, but because we can't be there to do our theater workshops, we're usually in sessions once a week for 2 hours for 12 to 18 weeks. And then we bring in actors to perform the plays that have been written. We're doing that now through packets. We're sending in some videos, but there are new opportunities emerging with Zoom. And so, yeah, check out our website, get on our mailing list. There's opportunities for signing up to be a volunteer, and what that volunteering looks like now might be different, since we can't get into the facilities, but yeah, connect with us. We welcome that. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. These were incredibly striking performances, and it really highlights the amazing work that you all are doing, and to really lift up your voices and your stories so that more people can hear them, and hopefully, we can spread the word on this forum and to greater circles, and hopefully, get your voices out there and really disseminate these stories. So I want to give a special thanks to Mo Reynoso for her tireless work in editing the virtual recordings and creating all the beautiful slides for the performances and putting the music together. I can tell you this was a huge labor of love for you, Mo. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And Mo is also a teaching artist, teaches alongside me at Centinela, where we met Josh.
Yes, Mo, and yes. So Mo is definitely very close to this. And again, a true labor of love for Mo. So thank you. So again, a huge thank you. And I invite you to scroll through the comments and to share those with the authors of our wonderful plays, and make sure that Shaka and Earl somehow are able to hear and get access to those comments so that people can appreciate, so that they know that they were greatly appreciated and they had a very captive audience. So thank you for that. Thank you, Cecelia. Thank you, James. And thank you, Josh. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you as well. And as we kind of transition into the next phase of today, if we maybe just want to take a little pause, and I'm going to be silent and maybe just write some of your responses so that we can really capture that. And then we'll also be sharing this with James and Joshua and Cecelia and Mo so that they can kind of see some of the ideas that were inspired by the work and the conversation that we had today. So thank you, and I'll be quiet.
Well, that looks like some comments. If you have any more, feel free to share them. At this point, we are going to begin our visual and performing artist gallery talk. Thank you, Sulema, for moderating the last section with the playwrights. Erin and I will be hosting this section. So we have about 5 artists that are going to be talking about their work. And while this is happening, again, I invite you to be, immerse yourself in the art. Listen to what the artists are saying, but again, whatever you feel and see, share with the comments. We want to share this with the audience. Every artist is going to have about 7 to 8 minutes. We're going to ask them about the creative process and what they're trying to express through their work. And if we have time, if we have any questions in the chat, we will, of course, ask, I will ask the question to the artist, and we'll try to get a response. I also have a few questions for the artist myself. So, let's just be as interactive as possible. First, we're going to begin with Ezra Soul, and I'm going to first start off by sharing my screen. So give me a second. And the work is actually shared on the website that we're hosting here, at the San Diego University. And so let's begin with Ezra Soul's art. Hopefully you guys can see it. Ezra, are you here? Are you available to speak?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Well, I want to take maybe like a few moments in the audience and kind of just immerse and look at the art. And I will ask the artist to read the statement if they can. But I want the audience to just take the art for a moment. It's always good to just kind of let it in. Okay. All right, Ezra, let's discuss this creative process, but more about the being at that moment when you were there to take these photos. You as an artist and a photographer, you have this eye that you were able to capture these moments, these people. One of the images that I personally love in this collection of art is how you were able to capture not only the rage, but also like the inspiration that's running to these people and the collective group, the diversity that's happening in San Diego. You as a photographer, like, what were these moments signaled when you saw them? Like that camera had to snap.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say, some of you may know me by my government name, Chris Marcus Kitchings, and just to avoid any confusion, Ezra Soul is my sort of creative artist name. So when I was there at the protest, it was such an awesome moment because it was something that no one really expected in terms of just the sheer size of the crowd and how many people chose to attend that day. You can see in the artist statement, the protest organizers had planned for, somewhere between several hundred to, 700 people. And then we had over 2,000 people at least who actually decided to attend. And so part of the emotion that was present within that group was just the excitement of so many people gathering around this single issue and this single cause, because we had seen, riots and burning in La Mesa. We had seen a very, very loosely organized protest a couple of days before that in downtown, where you had, obviously graffiti and a couple windows were broken and some minor looting. But even within that, most of the people within that protest were very quick to shun those individuals and very quick to sort of try to get them distanced from not only the physical people who were there, but also the cause that was being represented. And so to go from that and witnessing those things to then this much more organized, much more massive show out, that was entirely peaceful. It was such a powerful moment and such an exciting moment that it really provided sort of a space where people could voice and share verbally or non-verbally their anger, their passion, their conviction, all of these emotions that they have been feeling, but maybe just haven't had a place to share. And this was sort of their first opportunity to do that. And when I was trying to figure out, which pictures to share and which ones to post and submit for this, it really came down to what images were the most emblematic of sort of what individuals were feeling and what the group was feeling as a whole. And so I basically came down to these four because I feel like it connects with the present with the past, and then also sort of projects forward in terms of what do we want to see as a people in the future, right? And so I chose to go, I had two sort of sets, right? I had a black and white set, and then I had a full color set. And I felt like the black and white images, it was so easy to connect those back to black and white images that you see from the 1960s, that you see from events like the freedom marches, the everything that happened within the civil rights movement. But also further back than that, you see black and white images of women protesting for their right to vote and to be full citizens in this country. And you see black and white images from Stonewall and various other LGBT causes, and it's sort of like this collective struggle that you can connect with when you take out the color, which is very ironic talking about Black Lives Matter, right? And so, with the first image, I really sort of resonated with that because it feels like these group of people who are linking arms to sort of become a leading front for the rest of the group that was protesting, they sort of took it upon themselves to be front and center and to say, I'm not afraid. I'm not going to shy away from the limelight and sort of blend into the crowd. And that was something that I thought was really powerful. And having sort of the braveness to not be wearing the mask on two fronts. One, because we know videos and images that have been shared from protests in the past, most notably Ferguson, I believe, were actually used to target individuals who were at those protests and to try to track down individuals who are at those protests. So to know that and to carry that knowledge into this experience, and for them to be willing to not cover up from that, and then in addition to coronavirus, to say, I believe that this cause is much more important than my health, right? That's a very powerful thing. And then the second image on the top right is an image that I thought really encapsulated what is happening at these protests, because I kept seeing a lot of news outlets nationally and locally talking about riots and talking about vandalism and damage that was occurring in communities. And I wanted to sort of use this platform as a way to provide a counter narrative. And so I thought, okay, well, what is it that I'm seeing actually happening at these protests? It's actual protesting, right? It's not really rioting and looting past those first couple of instances, right? But that's what keeps being reported on the news. And so if I can show what these people are actually feeling and why they want to demonstrate in this way, and they feel that this is an appropriate way to do it, I felt like that could be valuable as we move forward as a people, and really showing the sort of wealth of history of people who feel this way and feel like it's high time that we stop oppressing people in this country based on the color of their skin, right? And if you look, I was really happy this came out in the picture on the far right of that picture, the person in the black tank top, that umbrella on their tank top is actually a Hong Kong protest symbol. And by we, I mean some of my fellow protesters and the organizers sort of took a lot of cues from the Hong Kong protests in terms of how to dress, how to avoid being identified if that is a concern for you, how to combat tear gas being fired at you from police, how to generally prepare yourself when you are preparing to go out into these protests. And so it sort of connects our cause with the general cause of freedom movements around the world and anti-oppression, anti-fascism movements around the world. And I was really glad that showed up here, because I feel like there is a lot of overlap between those two movements.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if I could just say one last thing, the last two pictures, the bottom two, I felt like really captured what the full movement is about. The one on the bottom left, that guy, actually, he wasn't even part of the protests, which was really funny that this picture came out the way it did, because I think he was either just happened to be in the area. This was right between sort of where North Park turns into Hillcrest. And he just happened to be there, and he was taking pictures. And just the look on his face when he was doing that was so emotional. And it really felt like he had been wanting this to happen for some time. And it sort of just made you wonder, what has this man experienced in his life that that caused him to have this visible display of emotion at the sight of thousands upon thousands of protesters marching for Black Lives Matter. And then the next shot is the same shot that sort of just displays the full volume of people who were there in a way that, you know, you can say thousands and thousands of people were there, and that has weight, but when you see it, it's a very different thing, right? And so that's what I wanted to capture in that.
Well, thank you. I think you captured it well. You actually answered some of the questions in the comments, like the usage of black and white. I think your statement about the individual being there, not part of the movement, but being engaged and happy that it's happening, kind of also speaks on the fact that history sometimes just happens, you know, when you're not expecting it. And so I want to thank you again for sharing your art. It's wonderful. And for those that don't know, we actually wanted to have your the top left image as one of our invitations, because I thought it, you know, captured the moment that we wanted to share, you know, of Black Lives Matter. So thank you so much, Ezra.
Yes, thank you. It's been an honor.
Okay. Next,
you mind if I add in real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say also, as we talk about traction and momentum, the sentiment of effective change, I think it's really, really important that we look at that picture, if we can possibly go back to it, and think about, one, I think that's just a great snapshot of a historical area in San Diego, but how many people plan to participate in this particular event, and then how many people were in their daily lives, a monotony, and just answered the call to action. So as we talk about art, expression, you know, the general sentiment of destruction and rebuilding, I want you guys to all just think about, sorry, I had a brain fart. I was looking at the chat. All just think about the ways that we can participate when we're called to action. Thank you.
With that said, I would like to invite artist Marybel Martin to speak. Marybel, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I just want to ask the audience real quick, are you able to see the images?
Yes. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So, Marybel, in the creative process of this, we see, of course, images of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and then we have an image of a young individual having a sign that says Latinx for Black Lives Matter. Can you tell me, is this a series of images like a triptych? Are these interconnected, or are these individual images that you feel are just need to be shared with the audience of specific moments in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm very honored and appreciative of being here and being able to talk about this very important process in our history. To answer your question, the three pieces came as history and as things were happening. They came together based on results and how our world, our country is reacting to these events. And now looking at them together, they make sense. You know, one thing happened, the second thing happened, and then as a result, everyone rises. And as an artist, my images are my voice. and being able to convey things that I know will stay here beyond my time on this earth. I mean, the internet will be here for many, many years, and these images will be marking this time in history. And they transcend time, and they transcend language, and they transcend words, because they can be seen from other parts of the world and be understood as well. It's a very emotional process, being a person that is a Latina and being an observer of our history, of our events that are occurring right now. It's a very helpless and hopeless moment, and being able to funnel that compassion and that pain and the feeling of wanting to do something and make a difference and communicate your connection and your compassion this is the way that I do it. Just like a child, as someone was saying before, is kind of the go-to funneling of pain and compassion and connection.
Well, thank you for that. I'm reading your artist statement, and you just mentioned right now, art, makes a human experience more emotive and expressive. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that art is an argument, and as viewers, we get to see art through our interpretation. So it's also our argument. I would like to welcome the audience to, if you have any interpretations of the art, feel free to share them. As I mentioned, I saw this as a triptych. 3 pieces of art that are interconnected, and you mentioned that they were individual. One, it happened in history. History is linear, so it makes sense that we can see these sort of pieces working one by one. There's a question here by one of the audience member, or Sulema. The question is, I know that you also work in multiples and reproductions of your work for mass distribution. Would you consider making these into stickers?
Yes, of course. I do make a lot of multiples, and I feel that when one makes products that a younger generation, like stickers that are something that calls to teenagers or children or a more youthful audience, that is a way of conveying the same message, but in a more attainable way. I mean, a sticker isn't something that costs too much money. A kid could have a couple dollars and then plaster it on their bike, on their computer, on their phone. And that message is then exchanged with their friends, and it's just such a wonderful way. I mean, and then aside from social media, they share it, they hashtag, they tag. It's just, it's like wildfire. These things, when you mass produce them, they just kind of go out into the world, and the message just spreads.
Yeah, Sulema mentioned earlier that, a salon was sort of a conservative place where artists would share this like institutionalized form of what is art. And I think the fact that now we live in a world that's more interconnected and that art is mass produced, that means that we are able to share art with a mass audience. It doesn't have to be this elite, identity that people have. You don't just have to go like to Italy to see, the Sistine Chapel. You don't have to just do this. Artists should be shared with individuals, and your inclusion in social media. It's even seen in the last panel with the young individual lady holding her cell phone. While at the same time, as someone mentioned, it's both old school and new school. You're holding a sign and having your cell phone to share that moment. Art should be shared, and so we thank you for sharing your art, not only with us, but as to the masses.
Thank you.
Art is for everyone. Okay. So if we're okay, we're gonna move on to our next artist, which is, and if I mispronounce it, I apologize. It's Stephanie Stigliano. Is that correct? Are you here, Stephanie? I know you are, because I see your comments. Stephanie? Oh, Stephanie, I think you're muted.
Unmute. Okay. Hi. You'd think I'd know that after teaching all semester. But thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be a participant. And I'm also really thrilled to hear people's stories. It's been very meaningful for me, very emotional. So I myself use art to connect with other people and to meet new people. I especially have been doing that lately. I feel like I have to make more of an effort, but Zoom is oddly intimate, I find, and I'm enjoying that. So let's see. You probably want to know a little bit about the posters. These are things that I designed to put on my front windows of my house so that they could be enjoyed and noticed by passersby. A lot of people are out walking now, and there's more traffic than there used to be a month ago. So people in cars are seeing them as well. Another thing that I did with these is I turned them into my digital signature for my email. So if anyone would like to also do that, I have them and would be happy to share them. I made these images to be shared, so they can be reproduced as posters or as digitally at any size. So let's see. In making these, I reflected a lot about my community, which I feel like it's a very multicultural community, lots of interesting people from many different places. We've had Brazilian neighbors who share their barbecue. We have neighbors from Barbados who actually shoveled our walk, and we have to kind of race to I live in New England, I should say, just to let you know. You don't have to shovel your walks in San Diego, but we kind of, we shovel their walk, they shovel our walk. So I kind of had this idyllic idea that everyone's very friendly and nice. But then in some conversations, because I'm white, it turns out that there's people who make assumptions about me. Like I had neighbors say things to me like, this was a different town before the public transportation, the T. I live in the Boston suburbs. Before the T came to town and brought an unfortunate element in. And I realized in that exchange that I was being grouped with people that I didn't agree with, and I would say, well, the public transportation is public. It's for everyone. We benefit too, because we can get to our jobs. And then there were hints of this undercurrent of racism. My friend adopted a little girl from China, and he told me that when he was out walking with his little daughter, she must have been about 3, people would shout at them from cars. And I just thought how terrible. Here's a father and daughter out walking, and they have to experience this. And I realized that that's white privilege. That's what I didn't experience, because of the color of my skin. But I do really enjoy having neighbors from all over, and I wanted to support them. I wanted to make my home, my very private home, into a gallery that made a statement. I was a little worried because, what if somebody breaks my windows? And I thought, wow, how fragile am I? I'm worried about someone breaking my windows. But that hasn't happened. What's actually happened is that a lot of people stop and point at the posters and look at the posters. So I feel that it has made a difference. A lot of people in town are now putting up their own Black Lives Matter, really big signs, signs in their gardens. I want to live in a community, and I feel I do really that where anyone can run down the street for exercise and not be hunted down. I want to live in a place where people say hello to each other, no matter what the color of their skin is. We share things, we share stories, and adventures, and shoveling snow together.
Well, I think your desire for that community is definitely evident in your work. The fact that you are sharing this kind of makes me think about the contrast of the story you'd mentioned of the individual with the you mentioned was it Chinese or Asian? Asian daughter, right? They were being yelled at. I mean, you were taking that sort of moment too and kind of putting this on the audience because you're sharing this on your window, so people are seeing this. They don't always have time to react with you, but you are able to share this with an audience, and instead of you're sharing this positive message, which I think is great. You know, when you were discussing how some of your neighbors or individuals were putting you in this position where they're talking about the change in the neighborhood and, you know, through their veiled language, it's something that's obviously, it's not unique. It's happened in my neighborhood too. Coincidentally, when I was looking at your artist statement, I live in National City here in San Diego County, and we also have a Highland Avenue. And so, you know, I was making some of the connections with my Highland Avenue in the sense that, you know, I've heard individuals from my town say, you know, we love our neighbors, but we remember when the town used to be different, their languages, but there's growth in art. You get to see the transformation, you know, a few miles down from National City where I live in Highland, you'll reach Barrio Logan and you'll see these transformative art that was collective from the individuals who actually live there and transform their art to say, hey, this is our space, it's safe, and we want to show that we are here and we are diverse and we made our mark. So thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. The next artist we're going to invite is, I believe is a new student in our cohort or in our program, Kamala Kavati. Are you here?
Hi, I am here.
Well, I'm going to post your art. Can everybody see it right here? Okay, so Kamala, I actually had a very interesting question before we started. For you, I don't know if things are the same, and hopefully I don't get in trouble with the professors here, but I wanted to ask you this because it's part of the art you're seeing. When we applied for the program, we were asked, how do we define social justice? And so I wanted to ask you, how do you define social justice and how it actually shows up in this work? And now, obviously, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I just want to...
My interview all over again. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for this event. I'm so inspired and just so proud to be associated with this group of thinkers and activists. So I'm just so thrilled to be a part of this community. So my art, I feel like I'm one of, I feel like what Dr. Spencer's nieces must feel when something horrific happens and they maybe don't know how to respond and they just want to draw a picture. That's what my art is to me, that when something horrific happens, and especially during quarantine, not having the same access to, you know, community groups or not being able to go and actually light a candle somewhere and be with other people and mourn and grieve with one another. So my art is a very personal expression of my feelings and what I'm going through. And I think the part that has to do with activism is that it's that very first step of, you know, reflecting that we can't get to the actions unless we've stopped to think and to consider what is happening. So I feel like we can't get to the activism part until we've sort of made peace in our souls about who we are in this situation and how we show up in it, and then we figure out what our unique expression of activism is going to look like after that.
Wonderful. And so we have these two images, X 2020 and George, just X and then George, hashtag George Floyd. Do you want to speak a little bit about them?
Yeah, so again, I painted these for myself, not really for an audience. The first one, I painted that watching the tribute to Malcolm X on May 19th, on Malcolm X Day. The Shabazz Center had a beautiful program of artists and just spoken word artists, musicians, and different just different heroes of social justice speaking. And so as I watched that, that's what I painted. And I think what was going through my mind was, first of all, that I wasn't introduced to Malcolm X until I was a junior in high school. And that angered me when I was 16 years old. And it still angers me today that that part of American history was just conveniently left out of my education. So I still feel anger about that. So there was definitely that. And then I really wanted to paint something powerful, something that played with the ideas of opposites, and something that I've been thinking about, like considering Dr. King and considering Malcolm X, and just that idea of, are they opposites of the same coin? Or, can Malcolm exist without Martin? Can Martin exist without Malcolm? And just how their narratives inform our national consciousness in regards to racial reconciliation really in our world today. So that's what I was going with there, just like really trying to make something bold, but also wanting to consider the idea of opposites.
Thank you. I will say that in regards to how education is showing us that we're also put in this narrative that we didn't choose to be in, and so as you begin to dissect that narrative, you'll understand that individuals are complex, and social justice is like a tool that we'll be able to utilize to understand how the complexities of both the individual human as well as a community, institutions. And so I welcome you to the program, and thank you for sharing your art.
Thank you.
And then our last guest to speak is Jean Cornell Wheat. Jean, are you here?
I think I'm here.
Okay, there you are. So we have two images, Toni Morrison and Harriet Tubman, both out of the Fire series. Can you reflect on that series?
Sure. It's kind of an interesting story from 2007. My house burned down, and the only pieces that were left were 3 bronze pieces. And those pieces were oxidized, and they had these beautiful, beautiful colors on them. And I had them for years and years, and the colors started to fade. And for some reason, I thought that was my answer to what to paint. I mean, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to bring myself out of the fire, so to speak. And so I started working with metallic paints. And I really got into it, and I really loved it. So Toni Morrison is really painted with real metallic paint that oxidizes on its own. So she will continue to change like we all do. And the other reason was, and I want to tell Camila, thank you, that so many people that I talk to, especially people that are not of color, don't know anything about African American history or Chinese history or Native American history or Latino American. They don't know anything about anybody's background and culture. And so I think that puts them at a real disadvantage and makes them feel a bit uncomfortable, if I want to say that for them. But I don't use that as an excuse, because there are libraries, there are books, and the arts really are the world's historians. The artists, poets, writers, painters, dancers, we all tell the story of our time. So I started somehow or another in the back of my head, I started painting figures that were, when I would talk to people and say, well, this is Toni Morrison, they'd look at me with a blank look. And I thought it was important that, and I still think it's important, for some reason I got on this road, and I don't think I'm going to change for right now.
Well, I actually like what you mentioned about how art is a true historian. It shares history with the audience. I have a little bit of background in art history, and one of the things that we learned is You know, the reason we had pilgrims is because they went to churches to understand the Bible and everything. But even so, as you mentioned, the disadvantage of not knowing people's, you know, in a community's background, it's still evident to this day. You know, I recently spoke with some individuals who didn't know about the Tulsa massacre until they watched HBO's Watchmen that just premiered last year. So the fact that it took an art medium on TV to just learn about this important, really dark moment in our history, demonstrates that art is crucial even in these days. And that art, it will always be there. It's transformative. It's been from the beginning of the Paleolithic era, and it's still continuing, still evolving. With every new form of like medium, computers, paints, whatever we discover, art will always evolve and teach. I do have a question for you. Someone asked if they would like to know how the artists thought of the colors with art. So they wanted to know like how the colors are utilized in your work.
The colors that I'm using in my work right now?
Yeah, someone asked that in the chat box.
Well, they're metallics. They have nothing to do with skin tone itself. They're just metallic paints, and they're an expression of how I feel at the time. So it came from the fire, and that's where the idea of the fire within, it's a phoenix feeling. It's a phoenix that's being reborn. And we as African Americans have been reborn so many different times through the centuries. I thought it just was a natural thing to do for me. And one of the things when I say history, I have to be kind of careful with that, because movies they give you kind of a insight, but most of the time not the truth. So the truth you have to really, you know, search on your own. And it kind of opens a book, and it opens, you know, your mind to, okay, what else is behind this? One of the examples that I'd like to give is South Africa. You know, a lot of us didn't know what was going on in South Africa until some of the plays that were shown on Broadway, some of the books that came out, some of the songs that were coming out, Ladysmith Black Mambaza. You know, it was really wonderful, but we weren't aware of what was going on. And the same thing in this country is really apartheid. It's the same exact thing. But a lot of people that are not of color have no idea the privilege that they do have or can have that we don't have. And it's not that, I think it goes back to education again and sharing. And one of the things I'm really, really happy about, I was at the March on Washington. I grew up in New York City. I listened to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And I was with SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, so I listened to Carmichael. So I knew a lot of stuff about that, but what I'm impressed with now is that I think what I'm seeing is young people are really sick and tired of the crap. You know, this is crap. This has been going on for too long. And I think young people want to go on with their lives. They want to do some of the things they enjoy doing. They want to hang out. And racism, I hope, is not part of that. I really hope that we're beginning to see that it's really ignorance. And I think we need to catch up with them. You know, they're way ahead of us. And I hope they stay that way. And I hope that generation from them is way ahead of them. But at this point, we're behind. You know, as parents, grandparents, great-grandparents like I am. I think young people are saying enough is enough. And I'm very, very impressed with the marches and the protests and with people all coming together. And this isn't the first time that's happened. This has happened through the ages. But right now, I'm seeing a lot more young people and a lot more people that are white involved. And I think that's very, very, very important. And I think we overlook the fact how important it was that we had Obama, the first African-American president. Black people weren't the only ones that voted for him. A lot of white people voted for him. So I think things are changing, but I think we're really going to get rid of that hate seed that was planted many, many, many years ago. and burn it. So we're back to the fire again. Burn it, and this time it won't come back.
Thank you so much. I think you eloquently put your work into words. And so with that, I want to thank again every artist that spoke. We are now going to move forward with our interactive gallery tour. So besides these 5 artists that shared their work, we actually have more artists that were able to share their work, and we're going to go over some of the work, some of the images and other submissions that we have. First, we'll begin with, if you're here, I apologize for mispronouncing your name, Peggy Peattie. And
but that's fine.
Okay, sorry if I mispronounced it. And this was called Updating America. It's a mixed media on watercolor and paper.
Peggy, if you want to speak up and just say a quick thing or two, please feel free to do that. I see that you're here with us.
Oh, I don't know. I think Adon is doing a great job.
Oh,
I'm happy to add more if he has time, but I know you have time constraints.
I mean, I was just going to read off your artist statement, but if you, instead of reading it, if you want to just state something, I would appreciate it even more.
Well, I think the artist statement says a lot about the motivation. I am primarily a photographer, so I want to give a shout out to Ezra, who did an incredible job, especially shooting those protests in black and white, because it really does connect to the history of protests, specifically around racism in this country. This one is, I do a lot of mixed media as well. So as you can see, this is, watercolor paper on cardboard with a lot of different layers. And yeah, so it really is sort of my reaction to all of the current social uprisings. And like Ms. Wheat was saying, there's this just enough feel with the youth today. And I'm just incredibly proud of the youth in America that are out there in the streets and just saying, no, we are just so tired of this. And so this was my homage to the uprisings now. So I was in the process of collecting a lot of different photographs from around the country, like the gentleman with his arm raised with the American flag is from the initial protest in Los Angeles, and the little girls was in Louisiana. So I was making a pile of these images that I could actually share with my students in the fall to create a dialogue about implicit bias and sort of the unspoken things that we see in images and the symbolism and body language and connections. And when I saw this photograph of the gentleman, he's 110, he's the oldest surviving World War II veteran. And it just really crushed my heart to think about all that this country didn't do for him while he was doing so much for this country. It made me think about the Tuskegee Airmen and all of the racism that happened within the troops, especially in the Vietnam era for Black troops. And it also reminded me of a photograph that I took way back in 1997 of a 109-year-old gentleman whose birthday was on the 4th of July. He was born to slaves who had obviously just been released from slavery, supposedly, because at the time he was 109, and that was in 1997. So he had the same really strong face, and his eyes just had this depth that went far beyond his age, and just had so much in his eyes. And this gentleman here reminded me of that. So I created this around the theme of Independence Day, ironically. So I used the red, white, and blue theme, and I used the hibiscus flowers, bright hibiscus flowers, with paint to kind of symbolize Obama's home state of Oahu. Little subtle comment about the birther movement. And everything else, I think you can read for yourselves in there.
Thank you. And it was posted earlier, but we actually have the website. If you haven't, can one of the other moderators post the site to the chat so that you're more than welcome to walk along with us. Next, we have work from CJ Maloney. And if CJ, if you're here and you want to give a quick statement about your art, you're more than welcome to. This one's called One Song. And I believe it's presented with a poem. It's called Finding Justice. And, we can see here we have two musicians. So One Song is a painting of two musicians in New Orleans, a young trumpet player and an older bass player. So their celebration of life throughout a shared love of music that transcends race and age. Okay. Thank you, Salema. Next work is by Heena Lodhai. If you're here and I pronounce your name, I apologize. If you'd like to share a statement in your work, let me know. Just speak up, interrupt me, it's okay. Here is called One Love. And the artist statement is, as we come from a diverse backgrounds, cultures, and genders, sexual orientation, and identities, we all have one thing in common. We're all human, and we should come together in unity to celebrate our differences and share with each other our hearts, for we are one love. Next up, we have work from Mailyah Spencer. Dr. Spencer, would you like to comment on anything on these works? The artist statement is, I'm a 5th grader at Alcott Elementary. It hurt me to see Black people treated that way. And I just wanted to show that Black lives matter and that I support the protesters. So this is work is from a 5th grader.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily have anything to say, but Mailyah and Myah are here listening to you, and they're happy for you to be reading their statement. So they're gonna wave, and that's them.
Well, we just want to say that we are grateful for your submissions and that we are looking forward for you guys to save the future. I mean, save the world in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Next work is by Myah Spencer. And this one says, I am a 1st grader at Alcott Elementary, and I think Black Lives Matter, and I love Black people.
Oh.
Again, thank you guys for sharing your art.
Myah, is that your hand?
Answer her. Is that your hand?
Wow. That's very, very, very nice. Mailyah, good work. We are very happy. Thank you so much for presenting in our exhibition. We appreciate your contributions. Thank you very much. We honor your voices.
Thank you.
Keep drawing.
Thank you, guys.
Next work is from Viviana Alexandrowicz. If you're here, of course, you're more than welcome to state your input. This one's called End of Apartheid in 1996.
Well, I'm here, and but I don't have much to say about it. I just want to say that probably some of you weren't even born in 1996, and but for us who experienced that era and the end of apartheid, it was so exciting. It was, and I'm not an artist at all. I've never really spent much time doing artistic work, but at that time, it was just so, for me, it was inspired me. And I happened to be at an art show or some type of art event. And I saw one of the artists had mixed the type of materials that you can see there. So I got really inspired to do my piece of art using those. And like I said, you can see chain on the bottom. You can see it as well, but they have chains on their necks, and then you see the chains kind of going away in the middle on the journey, and then you see the same people without the chains on top. So.
Thank you. Next, we have a poem submitted by one of our classmates, Graciela Muñoz, and I'm going to give you guys a pause to read it. All right. So I want to thank all the artists for their submissions. I want to, again, say just submitting the work is an act of bravery, and work that you submitted is very transformative. I want to take it back with my colleague, Sulema, who's going to do some closing remarks on the gallery walk.
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage everybody to please, we went through this very quickly in the interest of time, but please go back and really sit with some of these images and feel free to interact with them further with time and just to really look at them. There is a space there that we created so that you can interact and leave the artists a message, or just put it out there as you would a parking lot, if you're familiar with that term as an educator. That's sort of our version of a parking lot where you can post anonymously if you like, but I think it would be really special for the artists and the playwrights. There's a space there for the playwrights if you want to leave something about the plays that you saw or any of the gentlemen that we heard from. Feel free to leave your comments. They will be read. They will be highly appreciated. And again, this website is going to remain as permanent as a fixture as it can be on the web. So we really want to create a real memorial out of this moment in time, and really honor all of the voices and keep adding to it so that we don't, as I believe it was James who said, we don't want the momentum to dissipate. We want it to keep going, and we can keep moving it along, and hopefully in the future have more of these salons where we can continue adding to the work, and hopefully the artists that contributed here will keep contributing. I also want to just say a last thing is, please visit the websites. For example, Playwrights Project's website has more, if you go into the programs, they have a community program tab up there, and they have more access to their YouTube channel, where they have more plays by the gentlemen that are in the program, that are writing plays. And also feel free to visit the other websites. We have about 5 websites in total right now posted for Marybel. We have one for, this is Marybel's website, where you can see more of her work. Really what we saw is a true snapshot of some of their oeuvre, their body of work. And I know that Ms. Wheat, I have to take a moment to honor Ms. Wheat. Ms. Wheat has her sculptures that she briefly mentioned are absolutely stunning. And I would just want to make a comment that I very humbly reached out to her to see. When I saw her work, I was a little intimidated, and I said, this person is amazing. And if we could get her to visit and to present and to agree to speak and exhibit her work, it would be such an honor. So I really want to thank you, Ms. Wheat, for allowing us to exhibit your work and for your participation in this, because your work really, really resonates. And then lastly, I really want to honor C.J. Maloney. We didn't get a lot of time to spend with her poems, but she really wrote some incredibly powerful poems. We have 2 poems and then 1 painting of her. So please, again, go back and visit those and really enjoy them and take them in, and feel free to interact with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zulema and Nadan and Aaron, for walking us through and helping us interact with our artists. The next part is we're going to have Dr. Joseph Lathan, he created a short film and was going to share that with us as well. So do you want me to?
No. Dr. Jeff, I'm good. I think I can manage from here.
Okay.
I'm just really enthralled by all the artists. The artwork was incredible. We've seen so many different forms of artistic expression and from just so many different ways that I wanted to be a spectator, but they wouldn't let me. So I'm going to go ahead and share with some of the work that I was inspired to write right after the killing of George Floyd. So let me just share my screen here. I put together a short screencast. It's only about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but I think it's very powerful based on my own personal experience. So if you can now see my screen, there was 2 educators that inspired my work. And first I want to show you quickly a picture of me on my 8th grade basketball team. And if you notice, there's probably only one thing that really stands out when you look at this picture, right? And that probably is me. Okay. So I was inspired after seeing just so much racial tension on what it is that we could do to help alleviate some of the racial tension where we're not just mad at each other because of the color of our skin. And a lot of that has been happening for decades. And I think a lot of that is the form of ignorance that so many like James and so many other people spoke about. So I remember going to when I first came to USD, I remember having the opportunity to see Zaretta Hammond at the 2019 CCT conference, and author of Cultural Responsive Teaching. And I was inspired by something that she said, and it's not in the exact words, but she says that the only one, and I titled this The Only One in the Room. She says, until you put yourself in position or places in which you are the only one, you will never open up the door to better understand others outside of your own affiliation. And that resonated with me. And then I was watching James Baldwin some years ago, and being that all of the protests and things that are happening now resurfaced, they were showing a lot of the movies, and I was watching James Baldwin, and it struck me when he said that I had been taken in hand by a young white school teacher named Bill Miller, a beautiful woman, very important to me. She gave me books to read and talked to me about the books and about the world. Because of Bill Miller, who arrived in my terrifying life so soon that I never really managed to hate white people. So with that being said, I'm gonna now go ahead and just share this quick. Let me make sure I have my sound and I have optimized, and I'm gonna share this with you. And then I'm just open for any brief comments or any feedback that you would like to share. So give me one moment and make sure I optimize my screen. Here we go. And hopefully you'll find this as meaningful as it was for me. Okay, let's do it. And we'll hit the play button.
Greetings once again, everyone. Hi, Dr. Joseph Lathan is here.
We can't
and
actually
in the
see
spirit
your
of
video.
helping to heal our country and nation of racial.
Okay, let me stop there for a minute and see what's going on. Okay, we're gonna start that over. How are we doing? How is that?
We got it. Perfect.
Hi.
Okay, how about sound?
Greetings once again,
Sound is
everyone.
good.
Hi,
Good.
Dr. Joseph Lathan is here. And in the spirit of helping to heal our country and nation of racial tension, today's message addresses a way to confront systematic racism from my own personal experience. First of all, do you know that racism is a teaching, not a gene? And as you look at this screen, you'll see that this is my 8th grade basketball picture when I attended the Dundee School District in Michigan back in the late 70s. Judging by the picture, you can see that it was a predominantly Caucasian school, and the majority of the Black population lived outside of town, mainly on one street. If I was the only one on the basketball team, you can safely assume that I was the only one in the classroom. Being the only Black was very challenging at times, and I was subjected to racism, both intentionally and unintentionally, which simply became a part of the culture in which I grew up in. Despite the experience of being the only Black person in the room, I now realize the value of my childhood experience, as it put me in a position to better understand my Caucasian sisters and brothers through experience and not merely from what others told me. I'm totally convinced that racism is taught and birthed purely out of ignorance and lack of exposure to people who may look like you. I am a working professional. I have earned my PhD working at a majority white institution, and in no means am I intimidated by my white brothers or sisters, nor do I hold systematic generalized beliefs about how they feel about Black people, because I was able to experience being around people who look different than me. I challenge anyone who feels a certain way about any group of people to put yourself in places and spaces with people who look different than you. then and only then will you have a chance to break the systematic chains of systematic racism. I thank you for listening. I hope that you receive something from this message. Hashtag Heaven on Earth, Dr. Lathan.
All right. All right. With that being said, I'm hopefully that the message for me was that it was so inspiring growing up in that environment that if I didn't have the opportunity to meet people to help change or a perception that may have been taught to me about a people, if I hadn't had my own personal experience like James Baldwin, I met too many white people early in my life to give me a chance to hate white people as a whole. So I challenge anyone that if you feel different about people, put yourself in a place where you're the only one. Then and only then might you get a chance to walk in their shoes, or at least attempt to walk at least in some of their footsteps. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lathan. Did anyone have any thoughts? We've got some things coming in the chat as well, so make sure that we take a look at that. We also invited Dr. Christopher Hall to join us for some closing thoughts. I will let you know we have one more plug after he finishes speaking, but Dr. Hall?
I'm muted. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to see everyone here join together to first talk about the subject, which I understand can be very difficult for a lot of people. But the other piece is I'm glad to see so many people join together to tell the story in a particular way. So art has always been a part of the Black protest movement and the Black struggle because it is a way to speak truth to power outside of a march and outside of a sign. It is a way to tell a story that is unique to that particular individual. So today we had a lot of visual art. We also had poems, but I'm often reminded of not only our literary folks, but our visual artists, like our Gordon Parks, who was able to tell his story through photography, or our Nina Simone's, who did Mississippi Goddamn, and how we're able to speak truth to power in so many different ways. So for you to bring your art here to speak that truth to power is important because it gives folks an opportunity to hear these stories in a way that is unique, in a way that is going to be memorable to people in a very different way. And I hope that as we go forward, you will feel empowered to begin to tell your stories in different ways too. So that means if there's something that you can't necessarily verbalize, if there is a way for you to be able to speak, this can be a medium for you to speak, where certain folks aren't protesters and getting out on the streets isn't their thing, but they are able to take a picture. They are able to write a poem. They are able to sing a song and still convey how they're feeling with just as much conviction. So again, thank you for coming out. I hope that this isn't the last opportunity we have to share in this particular way. And I look forward to seeing what you all come up with the next time we do this.
Thank you so much. All right, I am gonna show you this last screen because I have oops, not sure which screen I'm showing you right now. The right one? Okay. On this last screen, we actually have a QR code, so you can hold your phone up to the screen if you'd like. And then I'm also going to put in the chat the link to the survey. And Aaron was going to talk a little bit about what the survey is for. Aaron?
Close that door. Sorry. All right, so just in honoring of this entire program, we know that in the very beginning, the call to action statement stated that we wanted to focus on a few pillars. There was the action component, the advocacy, celebration, learning and growth, personal expression, which we're obviously taking care of today, and the unity building. So within that, we want to really get the pulse of the community that's here with us today. And all of you, thank you for joining us once again. But we want to get the pulse of where you all are at and use this information to help us adjust accordingly to the way that we plan future events for you all. So your feedback is appreciated, and thank you in advance. Did that capture it?
All right, you did a fantastic job. Thank you. So all in all, I know that we had a lot of information. This was, you know, a longer event, but we really wanted to capture and be able to really highlight some of the amazing work that's happening in our community and with our affiliates and everyone else. So I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and participating and sharing with us today. I'll keep on. So if you want to put one last thought in the chat box, then that will be recorded. I'll also, as I mentioned before, I'll be sending out a link to the video, to the chat, and also to the survey for our upcoming events. Dr. Quezada, did you want to say anything else before we end for the day?
No, I just want to thank everyone, and I think as Erin mentioned, that hopefully this is not the end. I mean, I'm already thinking, gee, wouldn't this be great to have a celebration at our orientation when we're back on campus, and using it as a forum to possibly raise funds for the Playwright Project or for student scholarships, all the different art and poems that were shared. It was great in terms of capturing what the spirit of the first event that was planned. So I want to thank Dr. Jazz and Dr. Lathan and Sulaim and all the PhD students for all the work, because I know it's not independent studies, it's out of your own time. So again, thank you very much for all the work you've done throughout the last three events, and just looking forward to future events that capture different groups as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
Like, I liked it so much, I don't want to leave.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Jazz. Wonderful, wonderful. It was just awesome.
Stop share. There we go.
Thank you so much.